Aging is a natural part of life. All creatures have their childhood, their middle age, and their old age. Species live different spans of time. A mayfly lives no more than 24 hours, whereas a Greenland whale can live more than 500 years. Just imagine, there are whales swimming in the ocean today that were swimming in the ocean when the Pope excommunicated Martin Luther. The same whales swimming in the same ocean. They live long. Our own lifespans are somewhere between the lifespans of the mayflies and the Greenland whales. And none of us know how long we will live. But we do see that our human life has its phases. If we are in the later years of our life, we can look back on the earlier phases of our life and see a certain progression. If we are still at the beginning of our life's journey, we can look ahead and anticipate the stages that are yet to come and prepare for them. In traditional Indian culture, 4 primary stages are designated. The first is called brahmacharya, and that word refers to one's student years. And then there is grihastha, which refers to the stage of life when one is a householder. Then vanaprastha, which is vanaprastha is the time of literally going into the forest, but the beginning of stepping back from the front line of the struggle of life. And then finally, the stage which is sannyasa, the stage of retreat. Each of these stages is natural and has its particular focus. It's important in the early years of our lives to be students, to learn, to study, to respect what has come down, to sit at the feet of teachers who have themselves sat at the feet of teachers, to receive a tradition, and to be, yes, humble and receptive, and at the same time eager to learn, interested, curious. That's a wonderful time of life. Those years of absorbing the great influences that will inspire our lives, preparing for what lies ahead, a time of training. You might look back on that time of your life and you could reflect and ask yourself, what are the influences, what are the cultural and aesthetic and intellectual and spiritual currents that I studiously absorbed, those influences that propelled me on the journey of my life. And then comes the second stage when one goes forth into the world, into a profession. One perhaps finds one's life's partner. One starts a family. One has to maintain a home. There are all kinds of duties, responsibilities, struggles, pleasures. One is very much in the midst of it all, in the very midst of life, totally involved. And year by year, accomplishing things, leaving one's mark, so to speak, making one's mark. But the years go on, and more one finds oneself, you might say a veteran or an adept, someone now with long years of experience. One steps back a bit, one isn't anymore on the front lines, but one is still present. But one sees a wider panorama. Now one isn't looking merely to eke out one's own living, or even to protect and nurture one's family. Now one is looking at a bigger picture, not only one's own family, but the neighborhood, the city, the nation, one's religion, even the planet. This is the time of life when one is concerned with one's legacy, planting seeds that will blossom after one's lifetime. And mentoring those who will come after you, passing on the wisdom that you've won through hard work. And then comes the fourth stage, and that is sannyasa, and that is the time of internalization, turning within, slowing down, opening up, simplifying one's life to the utmost. This is when life culminates in mysticism, in being a witness to God. And it's then that one is, as it were, distilling the perfume of one's whole life, sublimating it. All the forms crumble away. One is no longer occupied with the tasks that have preoccupied you for so many decades. All of that is finished. And just what remains is the perfume of it all, the fragrance. And that fragrance, the essence of your journey is somehow freed of the physical form. So you could look back now. You look back on the Grihasta days. You look back on your life work, and you see, what did you accomplish? Some of us here are still in the middle of the Grihasta, in the middle of our life's work. You could ask yourself, what is it that I feel I must do? What is my duty now? But if you're further on in years, you look back and think, what drove me? What was that dharma that totally preoccupied me? And now it is what I could do, I have done. One looks back, one recognizes mistakes, one's learned from them. But also there's a certain satisfaction in work well done. And then vanaprastha, and then going into the forest. What are the seeds? What are the legacy that is mine to leave behind? Who is coming after me that I have helped in some way, helped along? And then at last, sannyasa. When all is said and done, there's nothing more to say or do. All power has gone out of one's arm. Even the details of one's life are no longer easily recalled. But somehow there's an essence that lingers, the very gist of it all. Perhaps impossible to put into words. It's more like a feeling deep in the heart, the feeling of having lived and that life still going on, that life having in it an immortality which will outlast the body and pour itself into the eternal ocean. So in those last years, one is readying oneself for death. And that readying consists of an act of letting go, stripping away the layers of one's persona, the roles one has played, and getting right down to the pure essence of the soul. So in the course of our lives, there is a transmutation that takes place. In the earlier years, our focus is very much on the body, the magnetism of the body, building ourselves up physically, struggling, working. But more and more the emphasis shifts to the mind, what the body learns, what the body knows through relationships, through discoveries, a perspective, a wisdom. And that life of the mind then is succeeded more and more by the life of the heart. In the third stage of life, what continues, what persists, is not necessarily information so much as perspective, insight, and a kind of an empathy, the empathy that develops through witnessing the changeableness of life and the sufferings of our fellow travelers and their joys, a deepening empathy. And at last the empathy itself opens up into this kind of serenity that is beyond hope and fear, that is simple and pure. And it's a disclosure of the soul. One sees it in the lines of a wrinkled face, an aged face. Those wrinkles are the marks of one's feelings, one's anxieties, one's laughter. It's all written there on the face. The whole story of the life is written on the face. But then shining through that wrinkled face is a pure light that inhabits the whole story, but also transcends it. These are Moshe's words. Old age is the time when one is the record of one's whole life, whether one has been sympathetic, kind, wise, foolish, or whatever one has been, whatever one has done. Advanced age brings the record of it. A person can read in one's face, in one's feature, one's atmosphere. One has a greater opportunity to inspire, to bless, and to serve those who want one's service or who want to be directed. One can show them a better way of looking at life. So elders attain this sublimity, having lived so long seen so much, their bodies marked by all of their experiences. Now the elder can become a true guide, a friend, a sage, helping onward those who are moving through the earlier stages of life. There's a beauty in an aged face. It's not the beauty of youth. It's not the finely molded contours of perfect health, but it's like the beauty of autumn, the beauty of the green leaves turning golden and red and orange as they prepare to fall into the ground, or the beauty of a sunset as the sun goes down over the western horizon. It isn't as bright as the noonday sun, it's dimming, but it has this incandescence, this vivid color just before it goes over the horizon. That's the beauty of old age. And the aged one, the elder, becomes a kind of child again. It's a second childhood. Murshid says the principal soul quality is innocence. The child does not know, and therefore it is innocent. But when the soul has reached a point where it knows and yet is innocent, that is divine. Very often people mistake an innocent soul for a simple soul. Indeed, that soul is simple, but not in the way people think. So old age is a second childhood. Childhood is a time of simplicity, not yet knowing about the life of this world. And then one becomes very worldly, very involved, very impressed by all kinds of influences. And then finally at the end, one becomes simple again. But it's not exactly the same simplicity as the simplicity of the child. It's a simplicity that comes after experience. It knows all of that. It knows what there is to be known in this world, but it goes beyond it. It sees all of the problems, but it isn't preoccupied with the problems. It sees them, but sees into them, sees beyond them, and sees into a vast space. And that's a space of serenity, acceptance, and unconditional love. And that is why our elders have so much to communicate through their presence.